they're required to work versus 365 days, and probably less than that on someone else's job. Let's just say you only get 2 or 3 weeks worth of vacation. So on average, most people have to put at least 300 days in minimum in the workplace. So of course they want these jobs for their children. And then diversity wise, we have to look at the testing process, the application process, the physical rigorous process of health challenges that is known in the African American community, along with the physical abilities of training. Although we have great athletics and athletes as far as going into sports, when it comes to the idea of tests for drug screening and several more other exams to get in these positions, that's another hurdle that we see in our community.
You know, it's interesting as you mentioned nepotism. We think about the show Blue Bloods, and you see just generations right there in this police family going all the way up to the chief of police and down to detectives and attorneys and all else that are right there in that one family, which highlights that whole issue of nepotism. And yeah, none of them are black.
And I say that all the time. If you look at it, it took me to sit in a room where I was one of the only blacks. And I realized what they're doing is fueling, like you said, they have an attorney, right? So if you're going to sue the city, who's going to eat that attorney? You're going to give it to my cousin, my brother, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law. That's going to be the attorney that's going to fight the city and get that multi-million-dollar verdict because of diversity issues that's being throughout the civil service positions and mostly in police and fire. You're going to continue to get these lawsuits, but you're feeding my family at the end of the day.
You know, it's interesting, and I should introduce myself, I guess. I'm Rufus Williams. I host the morning show on WVON, and what I've noted, and some have noted in calling into the show, when we've talked about this issue, is the fact that in Chicago in particular, you don't have any poor white communities because of this nepotism and the ability of them to have these jobs, to have the benefits, to continue on generation after generation, which keeps them in places that keeps us out of those same places.
And you gotta understand, if we look at it in hindsight, who doesn't want that for their family, right? Who doesn't want to protect and make sure that my generation and my family is taken care of? The problem is we as black people need to jump on that same bandwagon. And when we get into positions and we get power, that we need to pull each other up and make sure that we're protecting our generations and our communities, except of having this crab in a bucket mentality that it's only room for one of us, is what we often see when we have people in higher positions. When we finally do get a position, we don't help advance our own people. But they're going to make sure, and for generations and generations, that they're going to uplift their people. So we got to take a little piece of that blame as well.
Well, because we are fair, and we know, having been betrodden for so long, we know what fairness is, and that's what we typically operate just as people when we get the chance. But it seems the only way that the system can be broken is through the courts. Can you highlight any landmark legal cases or significant policy changes that have positively impacted diversity in these fields?
It's very little, I'm being honest. There's some case laws as attorneys we love to cite and we can rely on. I know from my clients in particular, they've been looking at the Bernardo case, and that's simply a case of white firefighters who used reverse discrimination in Chicago to say, hey, you guys had these group of individuals, you guys are now forcing and mandating by the courts that we diversify and add more black people to the force. However, as a result of that, we're now being placed behind when it comes to promotional opportunities, and they always granted a nice amount of money along with advanced positions, which they didn't physically have to perform the duties, but they got the title and the pay. So I think, if anything, we should focus on that case here in Chicago. There are several other cases in Alabama and New York that has also set the landscape, but the Lewis class in itself started in '95. The case number in court is a '98 civil case. So this case was physically brought in court in the Northern District of Illinois in 1998, and we're back in court in 2024 asking for due rights and due process and what's fair to these individuals that were allotted an opportunity to work on the force but have not had that opportunity of inclusion once they were on the force.
We continue to fight these same battles over and over. And it was just 2 weeks ago here and in other places, I know we did it on my show, to review 70 years since Brown versus the Board of Education. And that opportunity that it allegedly provided us was one for integration in public facilities, and certainly the nucleus of it was integration in public schools, which 70 years later, it just doesn't happen. We still don't see it. And so the fights continue, but there's got to be ways to do it. And what we see now is that it's really going to take legislation and government involvement to make some of these things happen. Can you talk about how federal and state governments may be able to collaborate to implement effective policies that can promote diversity and inclusion in fire departments, police forces, and water and reclamation services?
Yes, what I would like to say is that we need to have more of us in those seats. We just saw last week Jasmine Crockett, Representative Jasmine Crockett from Texas, went viral for making a comment. But if you look at her work and what she's doing, she's a face for the African American community and making sure that someone who has lived the life of African American is down there pushing those initiatives on the floor. And we need that in state and federal government. We was all excited to have Obama, but also we also have to realize that we need more of us. And so as much as we can sit around and fuss and fight, we also need to realize that if I have a passion about some initiative, I need to be able to run or at least put somebody in that seat and pay attention to those who are running and making sure that they care about your community and not for a title and pay. And so I think once we get in those seats, then what they can do is actually go into these neighborhoods and realize what the need is. Like you have, I always use the example of food stamps, right? You have the idea that if you look at the application and what it requires, you're talking about if a mom of two make $50,000, she doesn't qualify. Well, we all know $50,000 does not go far these days. Along with rent, mortgage, if you have either of those, along with car note and just education, you want to put your kids in extracurricular activities, all that stuff, $50,000 doesn't go far, but you're saying that I can't get a food stipend to help me. And so those are the things that we need. You have someone pushing billions of dollars into the idea of putting housing for migrants, but yet you have your hometown people, your everyday people who are fighting to survive and live every day. And so because they don't live from that background and they believe that you guys should be able to survive off of $75,000, $50,000, then they will never understand the struggle. Until we have people like that, I don't think anyone will ever appreciate diversity, equity, and inclusion and the idea of diversifying any workforce.
Well, what you just said is that voting matters.
Definitely. 100%.
Voting matters, candidates matter, and agendas matter, and we need to pay close attention to what all those things are and who's presenting the best things to represent us, and be real about who they are, be real about what they say, and certainly be real about what they've done, because that is a true marker about what the future can be. We've been waiting for this train from Washington for a very long time. As Gil Scott-Heron says, it's 100 years overdue. But when we think about that, it really takes us to get engaged and involved. So talk about what community organizations and advocacy groups may be able to do in addressing and improving diversity within these critical public services.
I believe when we have these forums and we're allowing these politicians or candidates for certain seats to come in, that we also do our research. Just because they're a brother, they're a sister, all skin folks ain't kin folks. We need to make sure that we are doing our own research when we give them our platforms, especially a place like this where we know Rainbow Push Coalition and Rainbow Push Jesse Jackson for the work that they did for civil rights. We want to make sure those people that we put on the platform, they are actually have the interests of the people here, along with churches. I see it all the time. You interrupt a church service to put someone on a platform because they're running for a party that you push for, but what are their initiatives? We need to highlight that. In addition to that, we need to have more talks like this and be open and invite everyone. I'm glad to see the room today, but we need to also diversify these rooms because a lot of times people just do not know the struggles. I get on an elevator with someone who's not Black. They automatically get to the corner. I could be dressed just like this, look like I have no harm. I have no harm to you. I look like I'm equal to you, however you fear me because of the color of my skin. Because they don't have that exposure, then they fear me because all they know of what they seen on television. I had a Hispanic person tell me, all I know is what I seen on TV back in Mexico for years. And every time we saw a Black person on television, they was doing gun rob, they was shooting someone, they was robbing somebody. So if I'm coming into the United States, this is what I'm accustomed to, and this is what I believe. So I believe, along with community organizations, in addition to doing the research before they put these politicians and candidates in front of us, I think it's also very key that we give these babies some exposures, along with forcing the non-blacks into our communities and give them exposures. Let's camp up and partner up with these individuals from Naperville and these other third parties cities and metropolitan areas outside of Chicago to let them know, let's do a camping trip together. Let's do a basketball league with, these different kids so that they can integrate and migrate and get to connect and communicate with these kids at a young age. So when they're actually on the force, they don't have that same fear and start shooting before they ask questions. Because I believe it really is a lack of exposure. And that's why we keep seeing the George Floyd stories and Tamir Rice and Breonna Taylor's over and over again, because there's a lack of exposure and an automatic fear just because of the color of our race.
Now, she said all skin folk and kin folk. I did not bring Tim Scott into this conversation. She did. Let me open this up a bit and add in Patrick McCollum. Patrick McCollum is an engineer and paramedic for the Chicago Fire Department. Patrick, welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the forum.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you, Rainbow Push, for inviting us to this Saturday morning forum. And thank you, Mr. Williams, for moderating for us. I want to piggyback on something Attorney Hall Jackson said and about the national dynamic here that we have in regards to discrimination, affirmative action. I think we just had some cases last summer in regards to Harvard, UNC, Supreme Court cases where affirmative action was rolled back on the education stage. And right now that is informing, unfortunately, what's going on in the employment arena as well. I know, and right now we're in contract talks. The firefighters unions in contract talks with the city of Chicago, and a lot of that was predicated on what was going to happen in regards to our own particular discrimination language in our contract based on what was going to happen with that case, which was given the makeup of the court right now was assumed that yes, that case was going to be, or that affirmative action was going to be rolled back in the education arena, and it was. Affirmative action was rolled back, and so now that's trickling down across the country. We know what's going on in Florida, attacks on DEI. So right now the landscape is not looking good at all for. Let's say there's high hurdles now. We're being reactive now and having to claw back some of the gains that were made. Title VII, Civil Rights Act 1964, 1991 Civil Rights Act. These are frontal assaults on what was gains being made by us. So now, for instance, our Lewis case, our cases, we $85 million, but they don't result in policy decisions. So you ask, okay, well, what are the most recent, some national policy things? Well, what happens is that their cases end up informing policy when they win a Supreme Court case. When we win Supreme Court cases, they don't end up being turned into policy decisions that are being used on a national scope. Yes, for that particular case, we'll have a comeuppance temporarily, maybe millions of dollars, some jobs here and there, but they don't end in making policy decisions. As opposed to this UNC case, it's going to turn into policy decisions and attacks, as we see nationwide across the country on DEI, affirmative action. It's a rallying cry for the opposition. So we don't get that same effect, obviously, because we're 13% of the population. So I guess it's not enough. It's a lot of us, but we're, like I said, we're fighting uphill battle to get headwinds. And right now we're in a tough position right now.
I think it's clear to recognize what's going on. And when George Floyd was killed at the beginning of this pandemic, and everybody was home and everybody was watching it, and everyone saw that assault. And I was out marching with Becky in the tennis court on the north side, watching this young white girl saying, no justice, no peace. Black Lives Matter, and I was shocked. I tell you, shocked. But it was happening, and people saw it. And then came a big surge in trying to pay attention to all the issues that we have been talking about for so long. And then came the development of DEI positions and all these other things. Well, where we are in a very short time is that the pendulum swings, and it has swung hard in the other direction. And so for all the gains that we may have seen or hoped for and experienced, there's a big push back against those. And we continue to see that every day. And so it impacts what we're talking about here today, because it's the same people who are making those decisions about our lives that we have to continue to push against. And so I will say this now, I'll say this forever. Voting matters. Victories matter. Our engagement matters. If we're not there and we're not engaged and involved, then we will get what we get, and we deserve better, and we only get it by our participation. When we think about that, can you talk about what some of the initiatives are, Patrick, that are aimed at promoting equity within the fire and safety sectors here in Illinois?
We've worked on several levels, statewide. We worked with the Black Caucus to pass a testing bill, which was aimed at getting us more access to the promotional pipeline. And so that was some recent legislation that was passed on a state level. Let's say that happened early 2023. That was passed, and that was passed within a framework of keeping affirmative action in place. Now, locally here in Chicago, we have the Office of Equity and Racial Justice. Well, right now that position is vacant. We have a DEI officer within the Chicago Fire Department, and I believe we have that as well within the city framework as well, as far as the Deputy Mayor of Labor. So we've been working with these various entities to try to express our concerns as to what we want to see as far as policy prescriptions are concerned. So we've been working on both the state and the local level here in Chicago to implement some changes as far as increasing our numbers in the fire department. Because right now, at the height of the 95, we had a maximum of 900 African Americans in the job, and now we're down 400 to roughly 550. So we've been sliding.
Do those numbers one more time, please.
We had approximately 900 African Americans in the fire department in 1995, and now it's down to about 550. And that's all ranks between firefighter up to a battalion chief. So we've lost that many African Americans in I think that's a 3-decade span. So so we're losing more than we're gaining, because we're only bringing on about 12% of a class a year as African American. So we're not keeping pace with our demographic, which is roughly 28%.
All kind of questions come as a result of that, and I know we don't have so much time, but we'll get to as many things as we can. But as you look ahead, what are they telling you that some of the key priorities and future plans are as it looks at addressing these systemic issues within the department?
So right now, and talking to some of the commissioners that are stakeholders in this to resolve this issue, the focus right now is on recruiting. To get into, it's like a kind of give and take dynamic. So we've been told that at least with the fire department, that there's so many people who want the job that there's no need to allot finances to or a budget for recruiting. So it becomes a community-based effort where we get out and volunteer to go to our schools and recruit. But I've been told specifically by someone in administration that there's no need to allot, at least as far as the fire department is concerned, there's no need to allot money to recruiting, because there's not a lack of people applying for the job. But however, what was not being said is, yes, there's a lack of us applying for the job, or at least in numbers that we find sufficient to get us to the end goal of being properly represented in the fire department.
So we've referred a couple of times to the Lewis class. Maybe it makes sense at this point, Attorney, for you to tell us, what is the Lewis class?
The Lewis class makes up of at one point 6,500 individuals that applied, that sat in what we know as United Center for years. and took an exam in 1995. And they sat in there, and of course, we all, if you do know anything about the exam for the fire department, you know that they don't get their scores that same day. They eventually received letters in the mail said that most of them had, or a good portion of them had, they were qualified score-wise, but they were not highly qualified. And so this arbitrary number of 89 was the cutoff to be highly qualified. So if you didn't score between 89 to 100, then you technically didn't get an opportunity to get on the roster to be called for a firefighter. And they pulled off that list for a few years, for a great amount of years, I shall say. And within that, Arthur Lewis Jr., his father was a firefighter, and he got together with Mr. Winbush and a few other these individuals who have a great fight and passion to see diversity and have been fighting from the 80s, if not before then. And within that, they went to the EEOC, and they navigated that process for about 2 to 3 years, and then they eventually took their right to sue, went into federal court, and the court can't guarantee 6,500 people a job. So what they did was took the average of what was allotted over the years from 95 to, I'll say, 2006, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. And 2007, somewhere I hear one of my clients in my ear. And so ultimately what they did was said, we can't give all these individuals jobs, but we can guarantee, originally they said 132 individuals jobs, and they had to be all African American. Could be a combination of both women and men. But they just had the only requirement, they had to be Black or African American, that you had to go in and hire these individuals. And she gave, the judge gave a cutoff date what they must be hired by. And of course, it was appealed once that, or the jury actually found in favor that there was some discriminatory practice in the testing process, in the application and testing process, and that was actually appealed all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And by the time it came back, they cut that number down to 111. They agreed to give them all seniority to June 1. That's why we're here today, June 1, 1999. However, when it came to promotional opportunities and testing for promotional, they got their original walk-in date, which wasn't until March of 2012. So if you do the math, these individuals was pushed back for promotional opportunities. So we got the diversity. You guys can come in here, we diversifying, but you will not ever be inclusive because there's a hurdle for them. If you know anything else, 30% of their tests out of 100% of the score for promotion goes to seniority. So they lose 30% automatically because you're talking about not 12 years later, a good portion, because you're talking about 99 to 2012. So that's seniority that they lost, along with, for most promotions, even down to engineer all the way up to battalion chief, you have to have at least 8 years on the job before you can even qualify for a promotion. And so, and just another key thing, majority of these individuals that came on through the Lewis class, they was in their late 40s and 50s when they got on this job. I think the youngest person was 39. And so this is a job that's usually suited for someone 21 through 36. So just think about the physical requirements that they had. So to me, it was a setup, but it was an opportunity to come in and allow 111 individuals, African Americans, to now get on the force. But the key thing is they had to fight for those 111 positions. It wasn't like, okay, we're just going to take a random 111. They sent out letters stating that you can take the stipend, which was average around $5,000, and move on with your life, because most people had already moved on. Mr. McCullum will tell you himself, he had 15 years at AT&T at that point. He had moved on with life. Mr. Payne on the end here, he was actually in IT, considered, he's doing, computer work, technology. He's in IT and making good money. And so they had to make a decision to leave these careers close to a good pension. I'm pretty sure some great benefits and colleagues and friends they developed friendships with, and now go compete Because I think it was like 700 individuals.
Correct. 700 individuals who were given the opportunity to be part of the class.
And they competed for 111 positions. So I always say, Mr. McCollum, what your wife had to say about that? You leave a good career with 15 years in the door, and now you're going to compete. You're not guaranteed a job. You're going to compete for 111 positions, and luckily, the 111 that did make it was some great individuals, and I'm proud to serve as their attorney. They're very intelligent, very passionate, and they love the work that they do, and they are here to be the face of justice and the change, because they want to open the doors for not only their children, but for children, Black and brown kids around the city of Chicago.
Thank you for that. This sounds like they got an opportunity to play Monopoly after the others have been playing for a while and all the houses and hotels and property was already bought. And then they get to get into the game.
There you go. Exactly.
James Baldwin said, to be Black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. And these are the reasons why. Let me bring another voice into the conversation. Janine Wilburn is a lieutenant EMT with the Chicago Fire Department, who's been fighting along with Reverend Jackson since the 80s, looking at this Appendix G in the fire department. Janine, can you tell us what is Appendix G?
Appendix G simply states that 30% of hiring and promotions has to be Black, and 15% has to be Hispanic. In the present time today, our 30% has not been met, but the Hispanics has met their 15%, and this is okay with the city. I have 29 and a half years on this department. I'm one of 2 Black female lieutenants. I came up through the rank. I took the test in 1985 under Honorable Reverend Jesse Jackson. Thank you. And I was hired in 1994. And so this fight has been ongoing, and I want to thank Patrick McCullum and Rodney Sheldon for getting all this paperwork together. They the brains behind this, and my consultants to them. And I want to thank them so much, and their wives and their families. And I've experienced 3 lawsuits on this job: the Lewis, the Vassage, and the Godfrey women. And I was so upset about that, but we rose through it. It's never okay, but it'll get better. And for us to be in our Black communities, and I tell the Black children in my community, which I go do career days, you can't be what you can't see. And that's important. And that speaks volume for this department, while we just behind, and we should be moving forward. Okay? So, and at this time, we don't want to put blame on too many people, but this last mayoral administration, Lori Lightfoot, the consent decree was taken away, which was June 2021 to 2022. Was it 2022? June 2022. And it just went away just like that. So, and here we are.
So another thought that keeps coming to mind is that, there's a hole in the bucket. And as we go through this process, and you've talked about, the ability to take the test and the number of people who should have been able to take the test. You talk about Appendix G, where there should have been 30% of hirings and 30% of promotions, except we sit here now and you've given the numbers that said the numbers have gone half in the opposite direction. There's a hole in the bucket. And the part that is also, we need to understand, because maybe we don't understand how the hiring works within the fire department. We've got a Black police commander, a fire commander. And so somewhere in here, it seems like we've got the right people in the right places, but we're not getting the results that we expect. Where is the hole, and how do we fill it?
Okay, so the hole is, and I want to go harking back to I want to give some numbers as far as because everybody in this panel, well, 3 of us on the panel sat at the United Center on July 1995. And so it was 26,000 people who signed up for that exam and sat for it. 9,500 of them were African American. 6,800 passed the exam. So that should have been a large pool of African Americans to make that 30% goal. Now the city engaged in some trickery. All right, so oh no, right? Is everybody shocked? The city engaged in some trickery. So they ostensibly, I call it kabuki theater, or shell game. They hired a African American test writer. All right, so this was supposed to placate us into thinking they were going to do the right thing. Well, someone in administration came behind that black test writer and said, you know what, we're going to make the cutoff score 89. Okay, so that took that 6,500 pool of blacks who would have been qualified for the job, and it made that 204 blacks that are going to be eligible to process. So think about that number. You have 9,500 sign up, and you get that number all the way down to 204. Now, is that an accident? Yeah, well, okay, we all know that's intentional. However, this is part of the gamesmanship that's still continuing right now. So now it's got a little bit more sophisticated in that now I don't want to be too crass here, but so yes, we have a lot of individuals in leadership right now. We've had successful black mayors, and Attorney Jackson has talked about, a lot of times these things are going on unbeknownst to the leadership. But now we have blacks running DHR, the legal department, PSA. Let's see what else. About a half key dozen positions, and those are the key positions. Those are the key stakeholders where we should be addressing these issues at. So what happens is we've got the pipeline is nice and full, but we get through the processing or through some type of other machination that we drop off tremendously. Same thing with the police department. The IG Deborah Wirtz did a study back in 2021 where she indicated that 37% of the people who sign up for the CPD are African American. Well above our demographic, but by the time you get through processing, that drops down. Matriculation in the academy is only 17%. So in every department, whether it be, water reclamation, CPD, CFD, streets and sand, we're applying for the jobs, but somehow through the bureaucracy or the Chicago deep state, we end up, not getting these jobs. And if you look on the OIG's website, it tells you the majority of these jobs end up in Mount Greenwood. That neighborhood has the most city employees. I think close to 2,000. So, right. So, and so when you, huh?
That's the neighborhood that all the black people live in, Mount Greenwood.
So if you look at this information on OIG's website, it's not surprising, that they're lined up. Mount Greenwood, Edison Park, Garfield Ridge are the top 3 neighborhoods where city employees reside. And so I look at this as a form of redlining. If I keep you out the job, I'll keep you out the neighborhood.
There you go. And out the school system. Your kids will not go to school with my kids.
So let me say, first of all, Patrick McCollum, for all of you who listen to my show every day, which I know is everybody here, I want to point out, especially these young folks on the front row, I want to point out the fact that Patrick McCollum is the brother of our news director, Candace McCollum, who you hear on WVON every morning, giving the news and traffic and weather. So their parents must be proud because they raised some really sharp children.
Keeping that secret, Rufus, for like 20 years.
Jig is up, the word is out. You shouldn't have told me. I'm as bad as Perry in that regard. I want to bring in the voices of these gentlemen on the end who also serve with you and have been part of the Lewis class. Talk about, first introduce yourself and talk about what it meant to you finally to get the call to say that you were admitted now after so many years.
And can I say this is my favorite story?
Well, good morning, and my name is Michael Taki, and I came onto the class with these brothers in the Lewis class of 2012, and as unique as our case is, my case, my personal story, is actually unique within our class. I like the backstory that our attorney painted, because that was the reasons when we came on this job. First off, let me say that most of us wouldn't have taken that job. You know, when they told us 17 years later, we're going to offer you this job. Well, why would I do that? You know, when I'm in my career, me personally, I was 26 years into a career as an architectural ironworker building skyscrapers in this city. And at the time I was owner of my company. Why would I walk away from that to take this job and be a newbie? They said, well, we're going to fix it. What we're going to do is we're going to give you 13 years down the line of this marathon. You know, I like to tell it this way because it's easy for people to understand. You offer me to join a marathon, but the marathon's halfway down the road. I say, well, we're going to put you halfway down the road with the marathon. Really? Okay, now that's interesting. Okay, what else are you offering? You're going to get everything that they got. You're going to get your monetary, seniority. You get everything they get. You get to join them halfway down the marathon. I say, now that's not bad. So I'm like, okay, I always wanted the job. You know, I mean, I own my own outfit, so I can close my doors for a minute and go chase this dream I wanted to chase when I was a little boy. Why not? And I'm 51 years old now as I come on this job. And I had to take a pay cut to take this job. But I still took it, you know, because I say, hey, look, I can get in here. I know my time is short, but I can get here and I can make progress and be able to tell my grandchildren. I was a lieutenant on the fire department, you know, and I remember seeing Truck 11 run up and down my streets, putting out fires. And they, as luck would have it, they put me on Truck 11. So I was ecstatic to get on the job. I loved it. And I excelled at it the way I excelled in ironwork. It wasn't until after we got on the job, we realized, wait a minute, you said you were going to make us whole, but you didn't. You made us whole in some respects. And then we found out after we're on the job that, oh, when it comes to promotions, you're not 13 years down the line with everybody else. You have to start at the starting gate. I said, well, wait a minute now. If we haven't started at the starting gate, that means we're going to come in last place of any class in the history of the fire department if you make us start at the starting gate. And for someone like me, at 51 years old when I started the academy, I'm technically going to time out before I get to the finish line. Now, most of my classmates will finish, but they'll come in last place. Me, I'm going to absolutely time out. And that's what happened. You time out at 63 years old. I was at my last birthday, December 1st, I made 63 years old. They would have officially kicked me off the job. And as I predicted, I would not have made engineer when I left the job. I left in five years ago. As soon as we qualified for a pension, I left. The reason being, there was no growth for me. I did everything I could do on Truck 11, and I transferred over to a special ops rig, hazmat. I looked at that as my promotion, because I knew I'd never have a chance to wear a white hat, which is what I wanted. I took this job to wear a white hat. I knew I couldn't get that, okay. I couldn't even be engineer because I was in the top third of our class, but I was in the bottom third of my class, which means even if I take this test and passed it, I still got these geniuses. A third of my class are smarter than me. So I have to wait in line behind all these smart guys, and I'm looking at the time frame. I say, I'm gonna time out. You know, I'm going to age out before I can even get to be engineer. So I decided, why would I give you another 5 years of my life? I got other goals, other dreams, other aspirations I can do. I decided to go chase those dreams rather than sit another 5 years in, in my opinion at that time, was a dead-end job. There was no growth for me. I love being on the job, but there was no growth, which means I wasn't motivated if I can't find a reason to excel. So that makes my story unique in that I was the first to retire off the job. And I'm still hoping that my classmates can fix this thing. It's over for me. I'm 63 years old. I'm kicked off the job, whether I stayed or not. But these guys still got a chance to right that wrong. As it stands, we're here on our anniversary, June 1st, 25 years on the job. There isn't a class in the Chicago Fire Department that after 25 years only have a handful of engineers, and at present, just 2 lieutenants. One of them, Daryl Payne, on the other side of the table from me, just got promoted a month or 2 ago. So what I'm saying is it's embarrassing. It's almost humiliating for us to spend this much time on the job and to have a percentage like that. In my opinion, 80% of our class should be lieutenants. At least 50% of them should be sitting for captain. And some of these guys should be chiefs at this point. Now, it's over for me, but I still want to be able to see my classmates right that ship. Why should we go down in history as the worst class in the history of the fire department? Everybody's gonna come in class in last place. Some of these guys will make it, but they, instead of walking off the job as the lieutenant, they should have been captain. They should have been chief. And a few of them should actually make it to battalion chief. In the short time, deputy district chief. In the short time we have, we should be promoted at a higher rate than what we are now. 2 lieutenants after 25 years is a disgrace. So even though they say they did us a favor, they cut us off at the knees. And that's the reason me personally, I decided to walk away early.
Good story, good story, good story.
You say it's embarrassing and humiliating, but it's also infuriating and empowering as you tell your story in the way in which you do. And we certainly appreciate your sacrifice and your ability to come here and tell the story, because this is the part that's also missing. As we talked earlier about nepotism, there are a number of people who did not benefit from nepotism, who are not in the department, who do not benefit from all the pension, the benefits, and all that can help to create a better community, a better family, a better society for all of us. And so we appreciate the sacrifice that you made in going back and being able to be here now and tell the story. I want to move to Mr. Payne, who you mentioned. Introduce yourself and tell us your story, and because you're still there, you're still part of the fight.
Yes, Lieutenant Daryl Payne. That feel good to say, Lieutenant. I'm the second officer out of 111 from my class in March 16th, 123 total, including the Godfrey women. If you do the math, that's less than 2% of my class that's actually officers. If you look at the classes around the date, the constructive hire date of June 1st, happy anniversary to all my class members. And I'm being conservative here, I know they're well over 50% and when it comes to the officer ranks. And that's not just at lieutenants, that's going all the way through battalion chief, up into exempt rank positions. So I feel a type of way. First, let me do this. I definitely want to thank Rainbow Push Coalition for this opportunity to speak. That means so much. Reverend Jesse Jackson, Mama Jackson, who has been like a breath of fresh air. Reverend Bobby Lewis, you've been so awesome to us. Mr. Williams, it's my first time meeting you, but shame on you for making me the last person. All these guys are so articulate, and I actually feel a type of way about having to speak behind them. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna try to make it, since I'm not as articulate, I'm trying to make it more impactful. Let's do this. I'm gonna try to take my story and make it your story for a second. Whatever career that you hold, whether if it's accountant, attorney, doctor, remove 13 years of your career. Remove it. Look at it as career incarceration. That part of your job has been snatched. Think of the networking that you missed, promotion opportunities that you missed, people that you would never met, training opportunities you never met, the income impact to you and your family and your community. That's what's happening with my class right now. And understand, even once you get on a job like this, the fight is not over. There's a lot of systems in place that's designed to make sure that you don't make it to certain levels. All right. Again, as you go through your day, you're going to think like, wow, I would have never met this person. This opportunity would never came about. Unfortunately, this is what we live through. And understand, I want you, you may think that I'm in my career, that I'm where I'm at, but think about your babies. Unless this get fixed, your sons, your daughters, your nieces, your nephews, the children in your neighborhood will go through the same thing. These things have to be discussed and solved and worked out and removed and eliminated. All right? So again, I hope, not as articulate, but I hope that at least put something on your mind.
Mr. Payne, real quick, sorry, Rufus, could you tell us what position you held before you came on the fight?
Okay. So in 1995, after I took the exam, I actually became a courier for FedEx. I actually retired off that job after 11 years. While I was at that job, I actually obtained my MIS degree from Chicago State University. Big up to 60628. I did a lot of stuff in that area. After that point, I went to California and got certified in Cisco. I was a Cisco certified engineer as well as a Microsoft engineer. Came back home and became a lead data center and networking engineer for Cars.com for over 7 years.
Reverend Jackson, what is true is that anytime someone says that they're the last person to speak and they're not articulate, you know they're about to give it to you. And that is exactly exactly what we got. We've got another gentleman here, part of the Lewis case class. Introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Hello, I'm Robert Owens. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'd first like to say thank you to Operation Push, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Reverend Jesse Jackson's wife, and Bobby Lewis. And I'd like to thank God for this opportunity to represent my classmates. So anyway, I bring my resume. I'm a master's level psychotherapist. 23 years ago, I got my master's degree. And before that, I got a bachelor's degree in psychology. I function as a hospital administrator. I currently function as a psychotherapist. And the free time that the fire department has afforded me has allowed me to build an art business, and I've become a renowned artist. Excuse me. So what I would like to say to every young Black child who's out here that doesn't have the ambition to be a firefighter per se is free time. I had the honor of being raised by a prominent Black psychologist. She's a doctor, and she's beautiful. And I have a warrior for a father. He was a Vietnam veteran and a 30-year Chicago police officer. These two individuals brought me from rags. I won't say riches, but they took me out of the hood and they gave me a good example and a safe environment to live in. So basically, they afforded me the opportunity to live next door to a Chicago fireman. So me and my older brother used to see this gentleman. He was a Caucasian man, and he would never tell us what he did for a living, but he would always be at home. And so, you know, we all wanted a career, but we were wondering, man, how can I be at home like you? You living next to my parents. You know, we were as young, you say, balling. So finally, we found out he was a fireman, and we took the 1995 test. I was an honor student at the time at the University of Illinois in Chicago. And when I got my score back, I remember throwing that paper and saying to myself, it was some bull crap. So I know for a fact, based on who I am, my ambition level and everything I've achieved on and outside of the job, that I would be a chief. And, you know, I just am who I am. God has blessed me with good parents and a good upbringing. And so I'm proud to stand here with you, brothers, and I'm going to fight. If you're a coward, sit down. I'm not. I'm going to stand with you. And let's do this, man.
Janine, I have to come back to you for a moment because when we look at these numbers, the numbers have got to be even more dire for women in the department. Talk about that and what it takes to get through whatever the situation is.
As a woman on this job, you have to be assertive. You have to be aggressive. You have to be tentative to what you're doing, and don't let people say what you can't do, because we can do anything possible with the help of God and our Lord, you know. So when I came on the department, I was being processed to be the Chicago police. I dropped that processing real quick and I ran to the fire department. So when I got on department, it was just 3 months in the academy. And present time today is less than 100 Black female women firefighters on the job. It was that amount back when I came on the job. It's always been 100 and below. I wish that it could be more we have no black female captains on the job right now. So we have 2 black females, myself and Lieutenant Kim Latiker, and we have 1 battalion chief that's black. Her name is Rhonda Walker. And we have 2 exempt, which is our fire commissioner, Annette Nance Hope, and Cynthia, oh my God, what's her name?
Herring.
Cynthia Herring. That's it. You just have 5 black women officers on this job today. So we just have to do better. I don't know what everything we do has to be about legal remedy for some reason. We have to sue the city for this. We have to sue the city for that. So as a woman, I held my own for the most part. I have 30 years in December. So, but I call myself a shero. I too have a master's degree from Northeastern Illinois University, which I'm not gonna play the games with them because I use my aggression and I got my degrees and the city paid for it. So.
Thank you for that. We've been joined by another voice, another of the Lewis class. Introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Hi, I'm Rodney Shelton. I'm an engineer on the job. Like to thank Rainbow Push, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Ms. Pam, Reverend Bobby, and everybody else that's been helping us, that has aligned with us. For the most part, what I want to really highlight in this is Appendix G. And right now, the Reverend and Rainbow Push helped negotiate this into the contract. And right now, doing contract negotiations, and this is something that we got to really pay attention to, that we are a protected class. You had a civil rights organization sitting at the table doing contract negotiations to get this in the contract. They're in contract negotiations right now. There's no civil rights organization sitting at the table talking about this language. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? In this 44 years, it has not been adhered to. You will hear people say that it has no teeth, and that's because in the second paragraph, they talk about the word go. But they don't talk about the 90% of what's left out of the 3 pages, where it says the city will, where it says the city shall, and where it says the city is mandated. And in regards to any class that has been discriminated against, there's a key section in Appendix G that has not been adhered to. And one of the things that we are going back for, and this not only pertains to the Lewis class, if the Vastage women got on due to discrimination, it applies to them. If it was the Godfrey women, it applies to them. And anybody else who got on the job due to discrimination. What's key in this section, and this section is titled Remedying Past Discrimination. And it's a section in there, and I'm read verbatim, where no reason other than past discrimination is found for non-promotion of such individuals, preference, key word is preference, will be given for the next promotion or promotions available. Where promotions are where promotions are made on the basis of examination, such past discrimination shall be remedied by giving, in the case of those who achieve a passing grade in each examination and otherwise qualified, preference over other candidates for promotion with equal or lesser length of service. So it was key to why we didn't get full seniority for promotion. And we had it. When we go back and we look at the legal briefings and things, we had it. And then all of a sudden in 2011, when we get a Mayor Rahm Emanuel, and he came in record time and settled that case. But it also took away us being able to have full seniority. And you have to ask yourself, how did that happen? You have to ask yourself, how did that happen? So with that, Appendix G, it has teeth. It's what you're ignoring, because everybody that we've come across, the first thing that they say is, oh, it's a goal. Well, the goal can't be reached if you don't have that foundation laid. And part of that foundation, it talks about you're supposed to have an affirmative action officer. And that affirmative action officer is appointed by the mayor. That affirmative action officer reports to the mayor and the community advisory board. That also comes under the mayor. The only mayor that has enforced this was Mayor Harold Washington. So with that being said, we have to really start asking our elected officials and everybody in these key places, what are we going to do about this? Because it is what it is. It's what it says, what it shall, what the city will, and what the city is mandated to do.
Well, thank you all. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I mean, certainly there's an applause for Harold Washington, but it's sad and it's pathetic that nobody else has picked it up since then. I mean, that's been a long time. We've got to be much better than this, and we've got to be much more demanding than this. You know, we're not going to end this without hearing from our leader. But before we do that, I'd love to get some final comments from each of you here at the podium, so we can wrap up, and be really appreciative of all of you for being here. Patrick, why don't we start with you?
I want to thank Reverend, because we keep mentioning Appendix G, and the reason we had that affirmative action language put in the contract was because of Reverend Jackson's involvement in this organization's resolution to resolve and use their leverage to put that affirmative action language in the CFD contract back in 1980. That was all Reverend Jackson's doing. So when you ask what organizations and such as Rainbow Push can do, that's what they did. They got that language, and Reverend Jackson got that language put in the contract. And unfortunately now, 4 years later, the city is trying to take all of Reverend Jackson's work and Rainbow Push's work out of that contract. They're trying to eliminate it. So that's why the organization is important. And thank you again, Rainbow Push Coalition.
Janine, your final thoughts?
I just want to thank the Rainbow Coalition, the Honorable Reverend Jesse Jackson, who I just love you so much. I want to thank the audience for coming to hear us today. And this is the first time in 29 and a half years that I feel good about this fight. Thank you.
Let's see who else is up here.
I'm just thanking Rainbow Push and the Reverend. And one thing I just want to highlight, and that is this fight isn't just about the Lewis class. It's about the state of the Black Chicago Fire Department. And one of the things is we fought some other fights that you aren't aware of. And I have to mention it. We helped get captains promoted to battalion chief. Okay? So I don't want people to think that it's only about us. It's not just about us. We stand on the shoulders of those that came before us, and we came in and we hit the ground running. And we're going to continue to do it. And we're going to pick up where they left off. But we did. That was something that we did, and we're going to continue to do. We helping people that's outside of our class. We're helping people that's out on the streets to try to get on the job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to thank Rodney Shelton and Patrick McCullum for being the brothers that they are. They never in a million years would I have thought I would sit next to one of the greatest civil rights leaders in the history of Black America. And it's an honor and a privilege to see the smile on my mother's face. And I'll stop right there.
Thank you for that. And last but certainly not least, Chiquita Hall Jackson of the Hall Jackson Associates. Also, as you're doing this, tell people how they can reach you because people are going to need those services as well.
Yes. One, I was wanting to tell you, I told you guys, these are some brilliant individuals that I represent, and I'm proud to represent them daily. You can find me on all social platforms at Chiquita Hall-Jackson or at Blow the Whistle Law. That's at Blow the Whistle Law on all social platforms. My final words is I want to mimic what Rodney said here. This is bigger than a Lewis class. The Lewis class is just the face right now of going back into court. And as far as what Ms. Jeanette said, it's sad that we have to go back to the court. And so my call to action here is this is an opportunity to not wait on the decision of ruling from the court. Let's get to the table and let's talk about how we can resolve these issues so that the dreams of these individuals that sit up here with me can come to fruition, meaning that not only do they get the opportunity to see promotional opportunities before they have to leave like Brother Taki did, but also that they can actually help their children get into the force. It's another young man that I represent, and I apologize, I do not know his name. He is a part of the Lewis class, and his son sat at lunch with me, and he let me know him and his brother too took the exam, and it was an application that stated if you have family within the fire department, list their names, thinking that that's going to help them. It did nothing for them. However, I bet if their colleague who was not Black did the same thing, they would have got their application to the front. We have to stop the discriminatory practices, and it starts by calling it is what it is, and stop sugarcoating things. We can say Black, we can say white, and we can make things clear so that people can see the discriminatory practices and nepotism. We have to piggyback off and make sure we bring in the right claims before the court so that we can be successful and impactful. Again, thank you all for having us. Thank you for spending a Saturday morning with us. We thank you, and congratulations on 25 years to the Lewis class.
Well, she was not least, and she's also not last.
Well, I just wanted to come up and land back on what everybody was saying. I'd like to thank you, Brother Williams and Rainbow Push for hosting this forum. And I just wanted to add something that I don't think many people know, that I really came into class with a lot of geniuses. And to prove it, while the Lewis class has one of the lowest promotional rates of any class in the history of the fire department, the Lewis class ranks #1 with the highest EMT score of any class in the history of the fire department.
Thank you for that. Before we hear from our esteemed leader, let's hear from Reverend Jeanette Wilson.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
We are glad that you're here, and the firefighters indicate that the fight still continues. The struggle is still on. And so just as Reverend Jackson and Rainbow Push were with them, their predecessors, we are with this team, this class today. And if you think that this kind of forum matters to you, we need you to invest in it. It costs us to be here each and every week, and we're going to continue to be here because we need your support. And because of your support, we can continue to fight with these firefighters. The next struggle is not just marching. It is legal. It is legislative. So now I need all of you to go in your purses, your pocketbooks, your wallets, and take out your contribution. Y'all not moving? Okay. Take your phones out. Hold your phone up. I know y'all text to give. Okay. Text the word push on your phone. Go to your phone. And like you know, you text people, text the word push. So you're not texting to a person, you're texting to push, P-U-S-H, 41444. Text the word push to 41444. And then you can make whatever contribution that you feel appropriate today. I know the firefighters are going to help us out today. We're going to make sure that we continue to promote this issue. Before Reverend Jackson speaks, he really wants you to be part of the upcoming convention. Y'all got it? Text the word push to 41444. Text the word push to 41444. Old school, do you have some envelopes, Pam? She's holding envelopes. If you want to give cash, check, money order, envelope. Right up here. Y'all thought I wasn't gonna come down your street. I'm over there. Give them a round of applause. So, Okay, Frank Williams is going to make a presentation at this time. Where are you? This is important. Meanwhile, August the 14th, mark your calendars, Rainbow Push Coalition Convention. We're going to be talking about all of these issues, legislative, legal, and direct actions.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. Reverend Deacon Doctor, so happy to be with you once again. Reverend Jesse asked me and a group of folks to put together the Real Estate Housing Coalition once again. We were doing it and pushing it 40 years ago and did a very effective job in changing laws and eliminating some laws that were adversely to us. Several months ago, we brought our real estate group, because I received the Fair Housing Award from the National Association of Realtors. We brought the push $2,000 then. Today, I have $1,000 to give to push. And I want to apologize, Reverend, because we haven't moved as swiftly as possible with our real estate group and committee. But I guarantee you this, and I'd like for those with that group to stand very quickly. The real estate group. Taft West, I see you here, stand up. Taft, stand up. Yes, stand up. Those are the folks that'll be bringing together and putting us together to see to it that we do a more effective job today, because the battle has not ceased. The battle, and as I listen to what was said today, it's the same old soup warmed over. It's the same old soup. I don't care which organization we're with. It's the same thing. We talk about nepotism, partiality, and bait and switch. God bless all of you, and thank you so very much. I ain't gonna do it.
Ms. Dobbins is here to take the check. Give them a round of applause. Your organization can do the same. You may not have 2,000, you may have 500, you may have 1,000, you may have 250, you may have 150. Whatever your ability is, we want. And now, anybody need an envelope on that side? Right here, Pam. Just a minute, Reverend, try to get your money. And then she's gonna go around. Now, I want you to stand and greet warmly the one that has been been on this struggle for the last 60 plus years, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you. Please relax. Be seated, please. It was something in 1960. We were in jail trying to use a public library. We've been ever since. Chicago in '64, around running and formed the Kenwood Community Organization, COCO.
Coco.
And then we found out that there were more blacks from Mississippi who lived in Mississippi.
There are more blacks from Mississippi in Chicago than in Mississippi now.
Yeah.
This is up south.
The reason why is that 900 blacks were lynched in Mississippi. 4,000 across the South, almost 5,000.
4,000 to 5,000 blacks lynched across the South.
We're about 900 in Mississippi.
In Mississippi.
So we have a certain burn within us, desire to fight back.
We have the desire to fight back.
Fight back, we win.
We fight back, we win. Repeat after him. We fight back, we win.
Unless we fight back, we never win.
What?
That's the fight back, we never win.
If you don't fight back, you never win. Repeat that. If you don't fight back, you never win.
Group one time went to President Roosevelt and said, if it Randolph and remember the opportunity group of them said, here's our agenda. Because I agree with your agenda, and why make me do it?
He said, give me your agenda, but you have to go out and make me do it. That's Roosevelt, Lyndon Baines Johnson.
So it really means to me that
It means that
some of these all white fire departments It's a picket them.
All white fire departments, it means picket them.
Yeah, that's a fight back.
Fight back.
I mean, you have a black mayor, but he'll be with you to fight. You can't wake up one and decide that your fight is his fight. His fight priorities.
Even if you have a black mayor, you still fight. He'll wake up and see that you're fighting and will join the fight.
Okay, my point is that I want to give the fighters a big hand.
Give the firefighters a big hand.
I've not seen most of y'all since that long. The fight we had on Jane Byrne. She tried to break it up. She wanted to have a black fire and a white fire department. And we decided to have one fire department.
So it goes back as far as Jane Byrne, where you had a white fire department. So we've been fighting that even before her, under Mayor Daley.
She tried to get the black firefighters break off and start their own thing, which would have been disaster. We decided to have one fire department. We won that one.
We decided to have women on the fire department. We won that one. And we have a lieutenant here today.
Now, the test scores, send out letters say you took the test. We should know the test. Time is taken.
You should know the test, the time is taken. They shouldn't have to wait and send out letters.
Mount Greenwood gets so many of the test scores because test scores are rigged.
Mount Greenwood gets the test because the test scores are rigged.
You follow me?
Follow him?
And so it means that you must also, the firefighter passing the exam, also got to be willing to fight.
Rufus has to close.
Be willing to fight fire.
Fight fire with fire.
Well, I want to say this to Rufus, I want you to start coming to meet on Saturday mornings, all of you, and start coming. We're going to go to the auditorium pretty soon. Bring your families to the meeting.
You should start coming on Saturday morning, firefighters, and your families when you're at work. They can come, be a part of the organization.
For example, now that you have the leader in Summers, Captain on the courts is not going to rule affirmative action. They're going to rule against affirmative action, against the right to vote.
He's saying the Supreme Court has ruled against affirmative action. It's ruling. The court is ruling against a lot because it's Trump's Supreme Court in large measure.
I want to say this, my friends. The Rufus finish this out. I want to say y'all, my friends, you got to.
Thank you all for being here with us today. And as Reverend has said, his body may be failing, but his mind is sharp. And you get to see and experience that every time. Grateful for the Real Estate Housing Coalition. You know, on WVON, we recently did a series that you can see on Vine TV called The Shame of Chicago, which talks about what's happened with housing here where we were not able to build wealth and all the things that are there. It's a 4-part documentary that I encourage you to check out on Vine TV. And listen to these things. Some of you may know, I used to be the president of the Board of Education. And yesterday on my show, I talked with Pedro Martinez, who is our current CEO. And my final question to him was about our selective enrollment schools. There are 5 of them, which are the top schools in the state. And the enrollment of Black folks in each of those schools is nowhere near what our percentages should be. There's a black box that exists there, just as we see this black box that exists with the hiring of Black folks in the fire department. It's important for us to have this knowledge, and it's important for us to fix it. There's a hole in the bucket. The next line is, then fix it, dear Henry. We are dear Henry. We are the people. We're the ones who must understand it, and we're the ones who must fix it. The lack of diversity in municipal jobs is a complex issue that requires concerted efforts from all segments of society. By understanding the historical context, addressing systemic barriers, and implementing inclusive policies, we can move towards a future where our municipal workforce truly reflects the diversity of our communities. Stay tuned as we continue this important dialogue with our esteemed panelists. As the Reverend pointed out, we have Black faces in high places, but we have a system. We have a system that needs to be disrupted in order to get to the places that we need to be. We must be the disruptors. This comprehensive document frames the issue of diversity in municipal jobs from a national, regional, and local perspective, leading into a discussion of potential solutions and future steps. Stay tuned, stay engaged, and stay involved. Thank you all for being with us this morning.